Okay, so we talked earlier about this article that I saw, and shit. I got on here a little late. I want to give this guy credit. So will you give me a
Okay.
second, Lana, while I look this
Yeah.
guy's name up? All right.
Yeah.
Do you know any songs or anything? Do you want to sing anything while
You
I'm
want
looking this up?
me to sing? No, thank you. I'd rather watch a group than me be grope and be groped.
All right. Well, what is your favorite song between 1960 and
Stop playing. What are you
1993?
talking about? I don't know.
Because that's
Sing
the only
it.
time music was good, between 1960 and 1993. If you give me a song, maybe I'll sing it while I'm looking this
A
up.
lot of genres. What do you mean? I love some Sade. She's my favorite.
Sade was pretty damn
Yeah.
good.
Oh
She was
my
very
God.
smooth.
Just timeless. Ugh, Anita Baker, Freddie Jackson. But I do
Oh,
like
You Are My Lady is a
yeah,
great,
I do
great
like
song.
the older Hall and Oates.
Oh,
I love
well,
them.
no question.
Um,
If you don't want to think anymore, I've got the name of
okay, go ahead.
but you can. I mean, if you want
Oh,
to
no,
throw some
no.
more out at me, you
No,
can.
that's fine.
All
Unless you're
right.
gonna sing them.
You are my lady. I love that song, and I'm not a great singer either, but I'm one of those idiots that know every lyric to every song. Again, it's got to be between 60 and like 1993,
Yeah, yeah.
but I know every lyric to every song. Um, this gentleman's name is Michael Tomasky.
Okay.
He writes for the Soapbox, which I've never heard of, but I will say I did see this article, and it is called "We Have Two Medias in This Country, and They're Going to Elect Donald Trump." So, of course, I saw the title of that, scared the shit out of me. Just like all media is supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but
Like, what?
it's a very long article, and forgive me because I'm going to read a lot of it. I'm not going to read the
Okay,
whole thing.
okay.
Um, but there's a lot of really good things in here. Uh, so he wants to begin by discussing the two medias. The first, of course, is that we call the mainstream media the New York Times, the Washington Post, the major non-Fox news networks, a handful of other newspapers and magazines. This has also been known as the agenda setting media because historically that's what they did. Whatever was the lead story in the New York Times that day filtered down through the wire services and other delivery systems to every newspaper and television and radio station in the United States. By the way, if you have any questions or if you need anything, just stop me.
Okay.
Uh, then there's an avowedly right-wing propaganda network, which we have talked about this many times on the show. This got cranked up in the 1970s when conservatives, irate over what they, and he even says not incorrectly, saw as a strong liberal basis or bias in the mainstream media, decided to build their own. Rupert Murdoch bought the
Mhm.
New York Post. In the 1980s, the Reverend Sun Myung Moon started
Mm.
the Washington Times, and in the 1990s, right-wing talk radio exploded. The Rush Limbaughs and some other people that
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with. Uh,
Bill O'Reilly.
Bill
Mm.
O'Reilly, yes. Enabled in by a 2-1 decision by a judicial panel of the DC Court of Appeals, making the fairness doctrine discretionary. Or discretionary. Now, the
Mhm.
fairness doctrine, are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
So, the fairness doctrine is another Supreme Court ruling that I almost put in the same sort of category as Citizens United is maybe one of the worst decisions by the Supreme Court. And what the fairness doctrine used to do is during the newscast, basically in a nutshell, what it would do is it would allow for both viewpoints on a particular subject. So if there was a right wing side, you would have to give the left wing side and vice versa. That was done away with, which now allows for anybody to say whatever the fuck they want whenever they want to say it.
Right.
Um, so then the Fox News channel was launched. Today, uh, when they're talking about the difference between mainstream media and the right wing propaganda media, he says they're about the same size. And in fact, the right wing media might finally be bigger, which I actually believe it is.
Me too. Mhm.
Mainstream media audiences and newsrooms have shrunk. Consider in 1990, newspapers reached 63 million readers. In 2020, that number was 24 million. So it dropped by almost 40 million people. In 2006, newspapers employed about 75,000 people. In 2020, all the way down to 31,000. The right-wing media, meanwhile, has grown and grown. Fox, One America, Newsmax, Talk Radio,
Mhm.
Sinclair, and all its local TV, radio news operations, and much more. Are you familiar with Sinclair Networks?
No.
Okay, so Sinclair Networks owns a majority of local newscasts, and they're very far right wing. They're owned by very far right wing people. There was a video that came out. I'm going to play this video here in a second, but there was a video that came out that is very concerning, and you're going to see how this propaganda machine works. Now, keep in mind, Sinclair is in markets all over the country, and in fact, it dominates the local news. But watch this video on basically how they run their channels and their local news.
Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing
our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 So I got one thing to say about that.
Putin
This
did it.
is extremely dangerous to our democracy. No?
Putin did it.
Did you see? You've never seen that before?
That gave me a headache. Why did you show me that? That was the worst thing. I felt like I was watching like Get Out or something.
Right.
Like, what the heck?
Well, it's super creepy. And it is, first of all, I don't even know if these newscasters truly even believe any of this. It's just kind of like, fuck, I got a job. I mean, I got to do what they tell me to do.
The prompter. Just got to read the prompter.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm glad I didn't see any local from my station.
Well, surely there's a Sinclair somewhere in your market because, again, they are all over the place. And it is, again, extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is what media has become in this country, is that when you're talking about a biasy, and they keep talking about the mainstream media has this biasy, the biasy more for the mainstream media is views, clicks, all that stuff. The biasy from the right-wing propaganda media is the left sucks, they're evil, they're coming to take your children, they're coming to destroy America. Right. And if you even think about being friends with a liberal, you are a fucking moron and you're going to destroy this country.
Right.
Did I sum that up okay?
Perfect. Wow. I mean, that's why it's has become up to us podcasters,
Mm-hmm.
other social media influencers on YouTube, our fellow podcasters to do what we do, because the good thing is Gen Z, millennials, they ain't watching local news like that. I barely watch local news. I watch it for the weather and to see if my train is on time or running. Other than that, I don't really watch it that much, especially not for like national stuff. I don't watch it, and kids are getting their news from, we always say it's unfortunate, but maybe it's not unfortunate that they're getting it from the internet. They just have to learn how to discern what's true and what's not true, like use their Google as they're doing that. But these TikTok videos, we see it on Twitter, like, people will post TikTok videos, or sometimes young people, like Gen Z for Biden, like young people talking about DeSantis and talking about like what these politicians are doing. So that gives me hope.
You are absolutely right. I mean, the internet is either the scariest place in the world or the best place in the world. And it really depends on how interested you are in really understanding the truth about everything. And again, what's funny is that I can read comments about us on this show and they will tell us we understand nothing, that we are so far out of touch with everything. So that's where I was saying earlier, the concern about how do you reach out? And on the opposite end, the people who think they're right on the right, and they, if any of them even say, well, how do we reach out to the people on the left and get them to understand what we're talking about? And I hate saying this, and it sounds mean and it sounds terrible, but I mean, there is some truth to it, is that it's easier to sucker the people on the right because I mean, just traditionally they're more uneducated, and people on the left are more educated. And there is something to say about that. That's not a snooty thing that, it's not elitist. It's just that some people got a better education. And I don't even fault the people on the right who are uneducated, and I will be honest, I've talked to people on the right who don't have the greatest education, but they would be willing to listen again on a one-on-one setting. But I mean, overall, I mean, let's face it, it's kind of easier to sucker those people.
Yeah. And they don't have critical thinking. A lot of that is just them. It's like, they tend to believe what anyone tells them if it's packaged in something that they already believe is like better or has more authority. Like Trump is someone who they just think has just the authority. He's a white man, business, so he's just smarter. The Democrats tend to have diversity, right? Like we would follow a black man, Obama, which is problematic for all of the Democrats.
I was just about to say, but it's also problematic for the people who don't want to side with the left, because if you're inclusive too much, that's kind of an infringement upon them in some weird way.
Right. And that is exactly why they hate progressives. Like they just don't, like you just said, it's like, for instance, this woman at work, she'll never watch this show. Well, all right,
let's get her full name, please.
she's just a nice lady, nice white lady, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
She will start her sentence. Whenever she starts the sentence, she sits outside of my office. She'll go, "I love everybody." And the minute she says, "I love everybody," it's going to be followed by some bigotry.
Does she have a black friend? Is that, that kind of thing?
That's the problem. She doesn't, and she needs one.
Yeah.
Right? Like she'll be like, look, my husband took this picture. It's in a Boston accent. My husband, Bobby, took this picture. And it's a homeless family. Like, it's just, and like, she's like, I think they're from Haiti. I go, okay.
What does that mean?
Right. She goes, they're homeless. The government is busing them here. I go, I said, Kathy, what government? She's like, the government. I'm like, what are you talking about? But I was so, it's like, this is a scenario. I bet her husband watches Fox News. She's watching General Hospital because she still watches the soaps. She's hearing.
Is General Hospital still on?
She's watching it. She said it. She's still watching.
Right.
So she's getting bits and pieces of it. So she knows some busing has gone around, right? Like she kind of gets that. So
Yeah. Does she know where it comes from, by the way?
I know. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to get that deep with her because she's not going to understand because she doesn't follow politics. But she was like, they're busting them. So I go, but Massachusetts is liberal. Do you think Massachusetts is just taking some people and busting them and dropping them off in your town and then just leaving them? That doesn't make it. But that's what she thought. And then she's like, her girlfriend can't get an implant in her for her tooth. She can't afford it because of the dental. Guess why? Because they're giving all the benefits to the people coming across the border. Because those are the people that are living great, right? Because those people are living in like a mansions and like big ass houses. Like that's not true. Our healthcare sucks because our healthcare sucks, not because somebody else is taking it. And if our healthcare sucks that we're paying into, imagine what the fuck these people are getting. Free healthcare is horrific. Stop it.
100% correct. And I'll tell you, I've heard the same shit in my life. I was in the car business before, and I would hear people all the time saying, they'd ask me, they're like, how do these people on welfare, why are they driving around in brand new Escalades? I was like, that doesn't happen. And they're like, well, I've seen it. I said, you absolutely have not seen it, because I can absolutely promise you a brand new Escalade's about $80,000. Right. And the people in control on giving those loans are banks, and banks aren't fucking stupid. Right. You think they're going to give somebody that has no income or is just living on is going to drive around in a brand new? Where are you getting your information from? They'll claim that they've seen it.
Right.
They might have seen somebody in a 1990.
Because someone's a person of color, so they couldn't possibly.
Well, that's a lot of what it has to do with. There's no question. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to come up there one time for a Celtics game, and me, you, and Kathy will go up there and straighten her out. So,
not to mention, welfare does not allow you to have a car over a certain amount of value. So,
it's so ridiculous.
They just don't allow it.
I used to hear it all the time. By the way, please like and subscribe to our show if you don't mind. Okay.
All right now.
So, do you want to hear more about this article? Or are you interested?
I do. I'm sorry.
If you're not, just say, you know what? It's boring. It's boring. If it's boring you, I want to know.
No, let's go. Let's go.
All right, so we were talking about the Sinclair thing.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the right-wing media has more power to set the news agenda right now in the mainstream media. The success of the right-wing media is by and large due to the way they speak in lockstep. And we talked about this earlier with one voice and the way they push one very partisan agenda. They promote Republicans and conservatives, and they say nothing good ever about Democrats or liberals, exception of people like Joe Manchin. You'll also hear who the Tulsi Gabbards and the Robert Kennedy Jr.'s who claims that he's a Democrat. Their gilding ethos is not journalistic, but political, to advance one party and creed and work their readers and viewers into a constant state of agitation about the other party and creed. And in a time when the Republican Party project has little to do with policy and everything to do with fomenting culture war, no matter how trivial, the right-wing Wolitzer is an adept at ginning up a good 2-minute hate against something that got tweeted or what Mr. Potato Head is wearing that week. And here, the mainstream media, chasing engagement like a child fields for candy, follows the right down into these rabbit holes. And they do that to perfection because we've talked about this before. The Republicans have little to zero policy. So what is their policy? Their policy is your kids are going to be affected that there's a Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, and you can interchange the sexes between the two, and that's going to obviously turn your kid into either a homosexual or a transgender person, which is so ridiculous. I don't understand. I mean, my sister had an Easy Bake Oven when she was a little girl, and I'm 1 year younger than him. I threw a fucking brownie in the Easy Bake Oven. Grew up as straight as you can be. I mean,
You're gay. You made a brownie. You cooked. You baked.
Right. I baked a brownie. Those awful, terrible, whatever the fuck that was that I threw in the Easy Bake Oven. And by the way, I'm not sure how healthy. Do you remember the Easy Bake Oven?
Yeah, I can't.
It was basically you turned on a bulb or something, and it basically
got hot though, right? Like that
Yeah.
bulb cooked that little brownie to death. I saw that was the same brownie in those TV dinners.
Yes. Yes, that was the best part. I always save mine for last. I'm like, I'm eating my shit so I can eat that brownie and feel good
The
about
mashed
it.
potato and the brownie.
1000%.
I
The
don't know
brownie
what
was
the
good.
meat was, but the brownie and the mashed potato.
Oh, we probably ate some poison when we were kids.
Hell yeah,
Um,
damn. Well, I mean, I know it's a delicacy in Hawaii, but
Yeah. All right.
sardines. Ugh.
I made a commitment to go through this article.
I'm
so
sorry, keep going.
No, it's not yours. Because we're going to interrupt ourselves a million times. So the mainstream media, in contrast, do not speak with one very partisan voice. They speak in many voices. Their guiding ethos is, guiding ethos is not political but journalistic. Sure, they're liberal in two senses. First, their editorial pages typically endorse Democrats. And second, they are culturally liberal because they are mostly based in big cities, and their staffs include a lot of LGBTQ people, for example, and precious fewer evangelical Christians. But even with all that, the mainstream media do not serve a transparent political agenda in the way the right-wing media does. When the New York Times or CNN or MSNBC gets a scoop about a serious corruption in the Biden administration, they pursue the lead, and if verified, they report it. If Fox got such a scoop about Donald Trump, well, it's conceivable that there's something left there who wants to do real journalism and who might pursue it. I wish that person luck, though, in getting it on the air. And even if Fox were forced to report it, they'd quickly find ways to rebut it. So, or rebut it. We talked about this, and this is the difference between the two medias. And people ask, well, how is it possible that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are tied? I think I've said this before. If I didn't say it on this podcast, I said it on my last podcast. You ever seen the movie Liar, Liar with Jim Carrey? And if you were forced to tell the truth for a day, a week, a month, the Republicans would never win an election because it's all based on bullshit. It's all based on lies. It's all based on something that just isn't true. So the reason, based on this guy, what he's saying in this article is how closely, and even to an extent where the conservative media is even bigger now than the mainstream media, that's exactly why we're tied.
Right.
Exactly.
They're the louder voice. And again, this fucking polls. Who are they polling? Like what? Who is being polled? Independents and Republicans.
And well, we talked about this, the one CNN poll that came out where they were basically tied, where a majority of them were right-leaning independents or conservative voters.
And not one of the media stations reported on that poll that Trump, they didn't report on it, but they reported about the poll, but they didn't report about that side note information.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, oh, I'm so depressed about the polls. And it's like, why do we go back to the polls? Because we don't have anything to talk about this week, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff to talk about, but nothing salacious.
Yeah. I mean, there's always something, to talk about. And you're right. I mean, it's just something always pops up, but we've got, And that's why I think this kind of stuff is really important. When I read this, it did strike a chord with me because, I have this conversation and it drives me really, really, I say this a lot, it drives me crazy. I think I've said that on the show a million times, but it does drive me crazy that, we are ignoring basically, because this article even says that the right will not credit, they're not going to credit Biden for anything. Right. Even when you've seen clips or maybe even watched it live, maybe, I don't know. But when they have to report a new jobs report or the inflation's going down or anything like that, they report it and say, this is what's happening. But then they have somebody on there going, this is why this is bad. Right. This is why the inflation going down is bad, or this is why the unemployment aren't the real numbers that you're seeing. They have to do something like that to combat the good news.
Right.
Okay. And in the mainstream media, yes, Biden does get credit for things, but the mainstream media do not speak with one voice as the right media wing do. So the loud and anti-Biden chorus that blames him for everything bad. There's no equally loud or pro-Biden answering chorus speaking as one and giving him credit for everything good. That's basically what Gavin Newsom was saying. That's what you and I were saying. And that's another thing. The crux of this article is basically saying the same media that wants to both sides everything. Mm-hmm. And if the guy that they really don't think should win wins, he's the one that wants to destroy you. He wants to destroy your job as a journalist.
Right. Right. He wants to arrest you, jail you.
Like I said, I don't want to read the whole. I mean, I would suggest anybody go and read the article because it's really long. And even the guy is not suggesting that all media should be liberal, not all media. And again, I agree with that in normal times. In normal times, I think there should be a viewpoint from both sides, and maybe somebody like you or I could hear a viewpoint from the other side where we go, okay, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But when we're talking about the way the media is today, and we have a propaganda machine versus a media that basically wants clicks and views and how are they going to get it? What's the best way to get clicks and views right now? Donald Trump news.
Right. And too bad for DeSantis because no one's talking about you.
I mean, again, you talk about he's trying to do everything he can. He's going to blast Donald Trump, then he's going to back off Donald Trump, then he's going to, what's the last I heard that he defended Donald Trump on was, the Russia thing, that he said, Donald Trump's really not for Russia. That doesn't make any sense. He had the best policy against Russia. And it's like, dude, does he give you Ted Cruz vibes that if he did lose, he'd be the first person answering phones for Donald Trump?
Oh, yeah, because he wants a job.